Hello, everyone. All right, let's see. It's still zero. Yeah, now it's showing 13 viewers. That's good. So let's give it another couple more minutes. So those of you who are already joined, please look at the link. I provided the link in LinkedIn chat as well as in YouTube. Please do sign up using that link. So that sign up will help you follow the workshop, and you'll be able to do hands-on whatever I'm going to do. You'll be able to repeat it right on our cluster. Let's wait another minute and then we can start. And those of you who are joining now, please use the link in YouTube to register. When you register, you get to join us on Slack, and also we'll send you the activation link to our cluster where you'll be able to actually do hands-on deployments today. All right, it's 2 minutes past, so Sanjeev, let's start.
Sure.
Hello, everyone. I'm here with Sanjeev. Both of us, we are going to show you how you can deploy Springboot microservices along with Postgres on Kubernetes cluster. So let me first start with what we are going to cover today. So Sanjeev, why don't you take us through what we plan to cover today?
Sure, Roger, thanks. So and let me first explain that the problem that we are trying to address here. As a developer, I have Java application, and that connects to Springboot database. The challenge people face is that how to deploy in a Kubernetes cluster and in a cloud or in a kind of private data center. This challenge is many people are facing. The learning the Kubernetes and building the manifest and deploying it is a big challenge. Kubernetes is a complex technology. It is, and later we will explain that how good this technology is in terms of the resiliency, in terms of stable environment. But learning this is a big challenge. So what we will be showing you today that your application, and in this case we are doing a sample application, but this is equally applicable for if you have a Java application that connects to Springboot, either on the VM based, and that can easily go to the containerized Kubernetes. We will do 4 deployments today. The first would be HashiCorp Vault. This also would be containerized deployment on the same Kubernetes cluster in the same namespace or context that you say. So if you are participating in the workshop in your context, there will be a separate context created for you. And in that context, the first deployment will be the HashiCorp Vault. We'll be explaining as we go along, but at a high level, HashiCorp Vault is one of the premier the security, like the passwords and all, the keeping, and how applications can seamlessly integrate with that. So that will be the first deployment. After that, we will be deploying a containerized Postgres, and you will see that along with the deployment, we will also create the schema construct, the user database, and all. And how we do that, we will explain that to you. That way, the database is right away useful for Postgres, the Spring Boot applications to connect to. Then we will be deploying Adminer, and the purpose of this deployment would be to show you that once application Postgres is deployed, how to browse the data. That's another big challenge people face, is that unless you expose the node port, which is risky, these Postgres databases are not visible outside. We'll show you that we will deploy a data browsing admin application. We have selected Adminer in this case, and we will deploy it. It will give you a web-based browser interface through which you can look at the database and do the minor admin tasks. And lastly, we are going to deploy the Springboot, Java Springboot application, which will connect to the Postgres database, and will show you the screen which the Springboot application presents. So a big long intro, Rajat, but let's get started.
All right, thanks, Sanjeev. So can you briefly explain how the vaults get integrated into Postgres and Adminer, and why is it required, and how they are integrated?
That's a very good question, and one thing that you will see whenever we say deploy, this means the GitOps deployment. So we have all these deployments will be happening through public repo. You have access to it, and these public repo explain that how these deployments are happening. And in none of these repo you will find the secrets or like the passwords which are used by Postgres application or say Spring Boot application, how it connects to the database. And to do that, what we have done, that all these deployments would be happening through a prefabricated templates, and that is what we build. That's what our specialization is. At Cloud Control, we have developed hundreds of templates, and these are not just the plain, I would say, the open source templates. We have layered lots of automation and lots of, I would say, the security construct, the logging and monitoring construct. That way, these templates and each of these templates, like HashiCorp Vault, Postgres, Adminer, Spring Boot, are ready for like the higher level of integration with your application. And as you see that as part of the Cloud Control AppG, the platform and stacks, that is what we offer, where you just bring your code. You just bring I want to have a database. I want to have some SQL that populates the database. I have a Java application. And without learning the complexity of keeping the secret, without learning the complexity of taking a web application on HTTPS interface, we will show you that how you can be productive on the day one, and all you have to do is just write the code, and AppG platform and stacks will give you the complete ecosystem to take the applications live. And again, we are finding that our customers are very happy with this whole thing, that there is a platform at last which is masking the complexity of Docker, Kubernetes, and open source system. That way they can focus on the pure development.
Okay. Sanjeev, so can we also touch a little bit on the cluster that we are going to use and the features of that cluster?
That's a good. So the cluster that we are going to use, it's a 3-node cluster, master node, and the 2 worker nodes, as you can see in the picture. And this cluster that we are using today is running on the Nutanix platform. Nutanix, we are partnered with Nutanix. They have shared a infrastructure with us that is sitting in our lab. And on that lab, we created the VMs, and on those VMs, the Kubernetes cluster is running. This is the micro-K8s implementation of the Kubernetes. And on top of the Kubernetes, our AppG platforms and stacks are running. So as you can see on the master node, our AppG platform is sitting, and along with our Kubernetes control plane, And we call it live platform. You can call it kind of like the cloud control plane. And other open source components which belong to our platform, our dashboard, our engine, all these things are running. And what it enables, and as you can see on the top on the worker node, are the ingress controller that gives you the an easy interface, or say sort of like the web interface, HTTPS web interface for your applications, which is getting deployed on the platform. So we are bringing an ecosystem of the toolings and the technology which sits on top of upstream Kubernetes. And the end goal here is that as a developer, you just bring your GitOps repository, your code will show you that how you integrate your Git repository with AppG platform via webhooks, and there is a manifest which defines the integration, and your applications will go live. A little bit on our AppG platform here, we can see the webhook URL that we'll be sharing with you, which you will be integrating in your GitHub repository. The dashboard URL we will be sending to you, where you will get a login also, where you will see your application. And these applications, in this case, you will be forking our the sample public repository to deploy your application. All the 4 applications you will be deploying if you're participating in a workshop on this Kubernetes cluster. And through the dashboard, you will have the visibility that how your application is getting built, deployed, and the runtime monitoring.
Okay.
And
yeah, so one question there, Sanjeev. So we are deploying database today, and in the industry in general, there is a question about how do you containerize and deploy databases in Kubernetes. So how is the persistence handled for the Postgres deployment today?
That's a very good question, and I think some people are still skeptical that they can run a persistent workload on the Kubernetes cluster, and the answer is that Kubernetes has evolved a lot, and in this case, the persistence is getting handled at the Kubernetes layer in terms of PVs and PVCs, and these are storage attached, and all cloud platform also give the similar kind of like the persistence layer with the EBS volume. So you just run the compute on one of these, like the worker nodes, and again we are using like 2 nodes right now. We have the clients who are using the like more than 10 nodes, and we are aware of the companies who are running more than kind of like the 1,000 nodes altogether, and running the entire like workload on like the single Kubernetes cluster. How you slice and dice it, that's a good picture, Rajat. This shows that this is the picture which is a Grafana dashboard with Prometheus showing the performance metrics of the cluster against which you will be deploying. So back to the question about the persistence, it's not a concern. We have tested multiple applications and with the persistence, excuse me, on the Kubernetes cluster, and it's a seamless integration with the EBS volume, and it scales also.
Okay. So those of you who are waiting, please do register. So once you register, you'll get an email with the instructions to log into our dashboard. So please do sign up. And once you sign up, we'll be able to start the workshop. So we are going to give it another maybe 3-4 minutes before we actually start the workshop. So Sanjeev, back to the cluster. I know when one of the challenges when we build Kubernetes clusters and build application endpoints, the security. So how is the certificate generation and the load balancing and things like that is handled in our cluster?
That's a very good question, and I see this in the industry all the time with our clients, that I have an application and how to take this applications live on HTTPS interface. and if they are working in the enterprise, getting a certificate or getting an environment where certificate is readily available is very rare, and they always get challenged. They don't understand that what these things are. So that's also an area like these type of things where developers struggle day in day out, like the Docker, Kubernetes. These are technology which they seem kind of like the foreign to them. They are more focused on their like the language or the database proficiency they have, and they always struggle with these external things. Which and again, this struggle is not only for the developer. These are the challenges for small as well as the large enterprises. They face this challenge on a day in day out basis. So what we are providing here, we are providing and you will see our URL. We will be the dashboard that you will be logged in will have the URL with the domain lotus.cloud, and this is the domain which we own, and we are running a public DNS service on this domain. And our solution AppG platform, which you see here, once you build it in any cloud or even if in the private data center, we are already live in AWS Marketplace. We will give you a dashboard, similar dashboard that you will log in today, and that dashboard will that dashboard would be HTTPS like certified URL. And as your applications will get deployed, and you see the construct with the ingest controller, we will be generating a URL for your application, which is HTTPS protected. So a lot of like I would say like the innovation, engineering innovations it has gone into to bring this to you. Again, with the whole idea that I'm a developer, Python developer, Java developer, and I want to take my applications live. So we have the platform with like the Kubernetes platform, which can take you there.
All right. So once you register, you will get you'll be able to log into our cluster and see the dashboard. So once you log in, you'll see an empty dashboard because you haven't deployed anything else. So now let's start the deployment. We are 18 minutes into the workshop now. So let's start the deployment. So first, as we mentioned earlier, we're going to deploy Vault, right? So Sanjeev, can you explain what we're going to do here?
So we have a public repo, and from that public repo, Rajat is going to fork to his Git, his personal Git account, and make some minor changes, and you will see that them live, and also add a webhook against the AppG platform. All of you participating in the workshop must have got a login for that AppG platform, and then he will do a commit, and you will see the Vault getting deployed on the platform. For Rajat, he will be sharing live, but all of you will be repeating the same steps.
All right. So Anusha from our team, she's going to post the link to the public Vault. So I'm going to share my screen. So let's start with the Vault deployment. So I copied the link that Anusha shared in Slack. So I'm going to fork it, and once I fork it, Sanjeev will explain the contents. So the first step is I'm going to hit the fork button and bring a copy of this report to my account. And I'm going to open the AppG YAML. So Sanjeev, you want to explain the AppG YAML?
Yes. So as you can see that, and this pattern you will see consistently on all the 4 deployments that we are going to do today. So this is the AppG YAML, I call it like the declarative manifest for your Git repository to integrate with our AppG platform. And here you can see the first section is more of the nomenclature and where you want the notification to go to. The notify section you will be changing to your email address. The next is the build section, where the most important thing here is that image template. So the vault you are deploying will be using the vault 1.2 image template that will be coming out of our repository, Cloud Control repository. And this vault is, I would say, like added features on top of the HashiCorp Vault open source image. Now, what are those added features? This vault has integration with the FluentD so that it will be sending log to Elastic. It also has integration with, as you see at the bottom, like the auto password generation. And so we bring a complete kind of like ecosystem of the secret management with the help of HashiCorp Vault. It has persistence also. As you can see, there are the volumes we are creating for the, and those like 5 GB each. So this is a persistent image. And there are certain ports that we are opening as part of the deploy section, as you can see. The context here is defined as alpha/dev, but in your case, you will be changing the context to your Git ID, because that is how the construct will be created for you. And Rajit is going to do live right now, so he's changing his.
So I forgot to add the.
Yeah, let's add the webhook first. So the webhook is the one which will integrate, and Rajit, what Rajit is working is also a public repo, and he will be adding the webhook.
So Anusha just shared the link on Slack. So we're going to take the webhook URL, place it in the payload URL, and then change the content type to JSON, and then add it. So now it's added. So now I'm going to go back, make the changes in the AppG YAML. Go ahead, Sanjeev. So I'm going to.
Two changes we'll be making. One is the notification, so that the email will be coming to you as the build and deployment happens. And next would be the context, which in this case it is getting deployed the context Rajit is, and we are creating the context right now based on your Git ID. That's what you shared with us, and that is where the deployment will be happening. Some of the features like the auto password generation, this is more from the application point of view, and you will see that when we will be doing the say Postgres deployment. So Rajit, why don't you go ahead and commit?
Okay. So please remember, when you edit the context, the first part before the slash should match your Git ID. So now, behind the scenes, so Sanjeev, you want to explain what is happening?
Yes. So this picture, I would say, summarizes the entire workshop and the workflow which is happening in the workshop. So in this case, I would say either you are wearing a developer's hat or operation hat, and it depends upon that what type of organizations you are in. And in some cases, that operation hat, the HashiCorp Vault is operation team will provision it for you or provision it in a dev UAT and pod environment, and you will be, as a developer, you will be simply consuming it. So whatever hat you are wearing, as you can see here, that you will be making a change into your source control system, GitHub or GitLab, and that is what you are interacting with. The change would be a material change in your repository if you're developing applications, or in this case, as you see, a change which is in the manifest file itself, AppG YAML. Now, what happens after that? This change from your Git repository, which is the change in that AppG YAML or the real material change, is getting merged by AppG platform. That is where our engine and other components are running, and it pulls the correct image we call it like app.js stack, sometimes also called template, in this case, the Hashicorp vault. And your change, whatever you did, is getting merged, and a new image gets built. And that image is pushed to a Docker registry. Our platform has a built-in Docker registry, but we also have integration capability if you are keeping like the Nexus, Artifactory, or some other like registry. Now, once once we have an immutable image with your change from the GitHub repository and merged with the app.js stacks, that is what is getting deployed on the Kubernetes cluster, and you will see that live happening. Now, and when I say that we see that live happening, that you will be seeing through our observability platform, the AppG like dashboard, and you log into the interface. You will start seeing that the line items appear against your deployments, and each line item will have the build data, the deployment data, and the runtime monitoring data. So let's see this live, and Rajit will show you. And this workflow will be followed for all the 4 deployments, and you will be able to see that.
So once it's deployed, you should be able to see this record, right? So before that, Sanjeev, I want to just show for those of you who are deploying for the first time, once the registration is done, our team do need to add you permission on our system to deploy. So if they're not caught up, you will get an error. So how you want to troubleshoot that would be if you go to the webhook and click on the webhook link, you can see recent deliverables. You want to see green here. If you don't see green, that means your permission is not there yet. So please do wait for couple more minutes, and our team will catch up and add all your permissions. So the team is telling me that it's another minute before all the permissions will be added. So in this case, my webhook went through with no issues, and when I click here, GitHub shows you the request and the response. The payload that was sent.
Are you sharing the current screen? I'm seeing this.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So sorry. So to check if the webhook actually worked, go to settings, webhooks, and click on the webhooks, and there's a separate tab called recent deliveries, and under that you want to see green. So in my case, you can see that this was the payload sent to the webhook, and this was the response. So you want to see this response. If you're not seeing it, the permission is not set yet. So we will have to retry it. So let's give it another minute for the team to set up the permissions for everyone.
And Rajit, while this is happening, why don't we discuss this, the whole concept of the webhook and how a Git repository gets integrated with a kind of like the live cluster. So that's another area where developer has kind of like the less visibility and how to accomplish that. So our platform comes with the multiple ways, and we support all the Git repositories. So we are demonstrating GitHub today. But we have integration capability with GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, Azure DevOps, and AWS Code Commit. These are the 5, I would say, the prominent source control systems out there. And we have integration capability for all of them. Now, some people sometimes ask that for public repository, you can easily set up the webhook, and our platform can easily integrate. Some people say that I have a private repository, and how do I support that? So private repository, we support that. That will be through the token. You have to embed a token. Token will go to our vault, and our platform will fetch the token and able to do the right thing to pull the code as they changes. And we follow all the GitOps like best practices in terms of that. If you want the deployment to happen or deployment to be picked up only from certain branch, we have all those capability kind of like the baked in. That way you continue developing the changes, and as you merge the changes in a particular branch, and it could be a release branch, it could be a QA prod, whatever, however you want to designate, we will pick up the change based on the setup on the AppG platform to pick up only from that branch, and the change will get deployed. Another questions we always get asked is that my company doesn't allow the webhook. How do I perform these operations? So in those cases, we have also built what we call is the Git poller. So that is something we'll be running on our AppG platform, and we'll be watching your repository based on the token that you have set up. So as the changes happen on the right branch, it will get picked up and deployed. So there are multiple ways we can accomplish this, and our platform has been thoroughly I have taken a very close look at what type of challenges people run into, and we support all types of permutations and combinations.
All right. So for those of you who got error because the permission wasn't there, you can re-trigger the deployment by making another commit. So you can open the AppZ YAML and change the revision number to a next number and then commit, and that will trigger the deployment. All right, let's give it a couple more minutes for everyone to deploy Vault. So while that is happening, so let's look at the dashboard. So Sanjay, you want to explain the AppZ dashboard?
Yeah, and as I was explaining earlier, that the Vault, Rajit forked Vault from a public repository, eCloud Control Vault, he forked into his personal repository and made a set of the webhook and made a small change in the manifest itself. And that Vault get deployed on the AppG platform under Rajit's context. As you can see here, you can see the Rajit_dev is the target. And the dev is the environment, and as you can see the build log. Let's pull the build log with it, and it will. So if as a developer, if you build any applications, you see the similar type of construct, and we are also tracing that what triggered this build. So if you can click the link on the top line item.
Yeah.
So this says that what changed on the SCM source control to trigger the build, and we have the full traceability here. So let's go back, and if you see that in this case, like there is no source code as such, it's just the manifest, and we are configuring the manifest to send the notification to the right email address and get the image deployed. So, and once these things are kind of like embedded into the manifest is embedded into the AppG template that is coming, we do a the build of a new image, and as you can scroll down, and that image is getting pushed to our repository. With a proper hash that can be verified, as you can see that, and once the image is pushed, then we move to the next section, which is the deployment section.
Okay, closing this and clicking on the deployment log.
Yeah, and one more thing to mention that this deployment is happening in the dev region, and the dev region between build and deploy, we are not kind of like it's a seamless deployment. But if we do the deployment in the QA and productions, there are multiple ways to bring the approval system, or we have a built-in approval system that you can follow, or you can integrate with any approval system. So let's take a look at how the deployment is happening. So in this case, an immutable image, and now we are working on the cluster. So that cluster, Kubernetes selects which cluster has the resource available to deploy, and it will create the storage. It will create based on the manifest that we are providing. And here is the final the manifest, Kubernetes manifest, which is getting created by our platform to deploy HashiCorp Vault. Now, one thing that you will observe here is that to deploy HashiCorp Vault, and down the line you will be deploying your application as well, Java applications, you don't have to learn the complexity of Kubernetes. All these things are taken care of for you by our platform. You just bring your code. And in this case, I would say like you just bring a configuration as code, and which is to configure the HashiCorp Vault with certain properties and all, and that is getting deployed.
Okay. So I'm closing this. The deployment is done, and let's go to the monitor section.
Yeah. So we have the lots of monitoring details, that how many pods are running, what are the metrics, CPU, memory, and that several 20 plus metrics that we observe. And if we click on the log section, we have the runtime logs, and this is very crucial. Now, this runtime log, like how it is appearing, let me spend some time. The pod, which is running on the Kubernetes cluster, in this case, this is HashiCorp Vault pod, is generating certain logs. And it is similar to your application where you are writing the log on the syslog or some other output. And those logs are getting shipped to Elastic, which is part of our platform. And this UI is sitting on top of Elastic via Graylog to present you the interface for your applications, your context to see the log. Now, these things are very crucial. Our whole premise is that to observe the applications, like runtime performance or runtime log, you do not have to have a privileged access to the system, neither for you nor for your admins. Your admins are many companies, they do that. If they need the log, they create a ticket and the admins will send the log. Again, these things are very risky. We come from the financial services background, Rajat, and the whole team who have built this platform, and the security is of paramount for us. And we want to make sure that the developer has access to the details without having the privileged access. And that's the reason we have added so many layers of innovations on top of Kubernetes cluster to run the applications without having any privileged access or a kind of the extensive knowledge to operate the system.
All right. So so at this point, Vault deployment is done, and can we move on to the next deployment?
Yeah, we'll follow the same pattern for the other 3 deployments also, and I will be more focusing on the individual technology that we are deploying rather than the workflow.
Okay. So Anusha is going to share the link to Postgres next, right? So
yes.
So the next deployment is Postgres. So we are going to, again, repeat the same process. I'm going to take the link from Anusha. All right. So I will. Here we have to make 2 changes. So I'm going to make the first changes now.
This change is similar to what you made for Vault. Your email you will put in the notification, and the context you are going to change.
Okay. Again, for those of you listening, see, make sure that the context is always ends with /dev, because that's the only environment that is enabled for this deployment. So make sure that your after the slash is always an uppercase dev, which identifies the dev environment running in our cluster. And the part before the slash has to match your Git ID, and that's how we have enabled the permission, so that we know exactly where you're deploying. So no other changes in this, right? So you want to explain this part?
And that's right. Yeah. So as you can see, we'll follow the same model. We have an image, Postgres image. That image is built on top of the open source Postgres image, and we have added additional feature here to support running the Postgres in a very resilient manner. Now, and these properties kind of like the define those additional add-on on top of the Postgres image. By the name itself, you can say that we are running Postgres 13, and we are running the master. So if you, we had a similar workshop last week where we demonstrated running the Postgres into the master slave format. So master is one pod, the slave is another pod on the same Kubernetes cluster, or it could be reside in a second cluster that way, and the slave is replicating from master on a continuous basis. So this gives the resiliency which people want to like use in case they're running into the production environment. We will be limiting to deployment the master only because we want to focus on the application integration. Now, other things that you can see here is that to enable the HashiCorp Vault integration, as you can see, some of the passwords are not the plain passwords in the repo. They are defined as Vault : That means that at the runtime, this Postgres image will pull the password from HashiCorp Vault. And in this case, most of the password will be auto-generated because that is what we have set up on the HashiCorp Vault to do that. And it will be used to set up the Postgres database. So imagine, like in this case, in your context, a Postgres database is getting deployed, and the password is getting auto-generated. So it's a complete secure system. And then Anusha, as an admin, she will share the password with you so that you will be able to log in to the Postgres database, and that's also will show you through the adminer how to do that. Now, this is just one part of it, and as you can see that we are also setting up a Postgres setting the password for Postgres Springboot password. This is the application user password for a Springboot Java service application, which will be connecting to the database. There are certain features which we have turned off, like for backup, we can do the web backup also, but that we are not covering in this workshop. But we have all those features available to run the Postgres in the most resilient manner, containerized.
All right. So I'm going to commit this change.
Yep.
Then I'm going to add the webhook before adding the next change. So
and as Rajat said that there are two changes here, and if you are using a
so I am adding the webhook right now.
Yep.
So webhook is added. So now I think I made a mistake there, right?
Oh yeah, I think you. And this is eCloud control, yeah. So I think
yeah. Let me fix this.
Okay. So Rajat by mistake changed the public repo, so he's just reverting it back. And yeah.
So that others won't get this change. So okay, so I'm going to fork it. I forgot to fork. Okay. Forking it. Making the first set of changes. So now this repo is in my account.
After if I give some space with it.
Space here, yeah. That's good.
Yeah, this we have already explained and covered. So let's commit this change.
Commit.
And let's add the webhook now.
add. So now added the webhook. Going back to setup. And
so, yeah, let's and this is also another add-on. So, and Anusha will give a token to you to use in this setup.yaml file. But let me explain that what is happening behind the scene. So, Rijit, why don't you apply the changes, then we will continue explaining.
okay. So Anusha just shared the token that goes here. All right.
Yeah, let's commit the changes, then I will explain that what is the purpose of this file.
Okay, I've committed. Yeah, go ahead.
So this file setup.yaml is to precede the database with applications related the database user, the construct, ACL construct, and also the sample data. Now, this is something which our platform provides via the enhanced version of the open source image, which have all these features added on. Now, again, the logging, monitoring, the preceding of the data, ongoing changes we also support, the via Liquibase. So that type of like automation we are offering, it is not a plain vanilla open source image which anybody can get from the open source and build it. But we are adding like lots of additional feature functionality which is needed to operate a Postgres database in a production quality, fully resilient, as they say, the master slave also. So in this case, what we are doing here, that Spring Boot applications, to connect to Postgres database, it has to have its own user. So that is first, it is getting set up. Its password is also auto-generated. We are giving the Spring Boot super user here. And you can define that what role you want to give to your user applications. A database by the name of a Spring Boot Web will also get created, and the owner would be the Spring Boot Web user. Table space, schema construct, like all those things are. So you are doing kind of the database admin type of task against the Postgres database, containerized Postgres, with a simple manifest file. So that's the level of sophistication and automation we bring, our platform brings. And the last part is the restore, which is if you want to restore that the Spring Boot database that is getting created from a dump file, that you can do. So let's
So I have several applications running in this cluster, so I'm filtering it so that we can focus on the deployment that we just did now. So this is the record that you should see when you're deploying, right? This is the one, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
So I have several other Postgres instances running, and I also have access to other Postgres instances. So this is the record that you should see once your Postgres deployment is complete.
And it will have the similar details as explained, the build detail, the deployment detail, and the runtime logging. So we are looking into the runtime logging. And as you can see that in this case, not only the Postgres containerized database got created, we have the seeding of the data that has been done.
All right. So now let's wait for others to kind of catch up. So let's take some questions. So I'm looking at the YouTube channel for questions. So there was a question about, in the apps YAML we have the volume sizes, right? So so how is it managed, and is it where is it allocated from?
So the sizes that we have specified, and these sizes are I would say like the PVs and PVCs are getting created for you, and it is attached to the pod, and these PVs and PVCs will be on the EBS volume attached to the VMs on which the cluster is running.
Okay. Now let's wait for the deployments to complete. I think a few more folks to complete the deployment. So the next, so let's kind of touch on the next deployment that we're going to do, and also cover some of the basic use of Adminer and what is unique about today's deployment.
Yes. So Adminer, it used to be called the PgAdmin. PostgresAdmin it's one of the browsing and the database admin tool. So once you're running the Postgres on a containerized on a Kubernetes cluster, it becomes difficult that how to access them. And so this is the challenge which the AWS also faces, that once you build your RDS on a private network, how would you access the database? So if you read AWS, one of the ways they say that go ahead and create an EC2 instance and on the same network, or like allow the security group to connect to the database. So again, you are going through the multiple hoops to enable the basic browsing capability of the database, which you might be having via one of the database browsing tool. I'm familiar with Toad and the pre-SQL developer. So many others are out there. Now, what we are going to do here is that we will set up an Adminer deployment on the same cluster in your namespace. With this Adminer will be set up exclusively for you under your context. And since this Adminer is residing on the same context as the Postgres, it will seamlessly connect. And the connect will be via, of course, you have to have the user ID and the password to connect. And we have added additional layer of the security, which is the OTP, and kind of like it is the multi-factor enabled. And Anusha will be sharing with you the user ID, a Springboot web user ID for the Postgres database that is created for you, and a password, and also the QR code for the OTP that is set up in the Adminer for you. So again, lot to go and lot to explain. So like, let's get started, and we'll follow the same process of the forking the public repository and deploying it.
Okay, so before we go there, Sanjeev, so how do we check if the Postgres deployment was successfully completed? I know I have some logs here. So what do I look for?
So why don't you look for the token first, because the token is something which is the constructing that
token?
Yep.
Okay.
So this says that the token got the found and it is initiating the restore. If you search by the Springboot web, we also see that the database and those things are also getting created as you requested.
Okay. Okay, Springboot, this has been restored. Okay.
Yeah.
Looks good. So that means the database I deployed is successfully
That's correct. So,
and restored with the data.
Yep.
That I pointed to. Okay, good. Okay, let's move on to let me check the status of others. So let's wait for. You can see that a couple more folks to finish the deployment. Let's give it another minute.
I will repeat the same thing again. As you can see that we are giving you a declarative way to define the configurations of whatever applications or the database you're deploying. They're also giving you a declarative way to define the internal construct, internal setup of the database, the preceding of the data, and then we'll show you that how your applications can get deployed, containerized on the same cluster.
Okay. So let's move on to Adminer. So Anusha shared the Adminer public repo. This time I don't want to make a mistake, so I'm going to fork it right away.
Yeah, that's it.
So now it's forked. I'm going to add the webhook. The URL is the same. So I added the webhook. Now going back to the Adminer repo, opening the abs YAML, making the 2 edits. All right, I'm ready to commit.
Why don't we commit, then I will explain a few things.
Okay, I did the commit now.
Like in terms of the AppGYAML, this manifest, it is similar to, as you can see, the vault, as you can see that, and from the app build and the deploy, we are picking up the image here, the Adminer 4.8 image template that you can see. And then we have here in the property section, we have the Adminer auth secret. So this is for the QR code that will be embedded, so that the screen, Adminer screen that will be presented to you, you have to enter a password, OTP, one-time password based on the QR code that you will be scanning with your phone. You must be using OTP for your banking or other applications. So that level of security we are bringing. And the reason for bringing the security is that we are giving you a public interface to browse the database, which is sitting in the private network. So more security we'll add is always better. The data is something that always you need to be protected. In fact, in future, we'll demonstrate you that we will give you another layer of security. That will be the you have to have your AppG credential, like your dashboard credential. First, you enter dashboard credential. So more and more security we are trying to add, but at the same time, we are making it accessible so that you don't create a ticket for the DBA or you don't log into the privileged infrastructure to look at your data.
Okay, so this time, since this has a user interface, you want to check your inbox for an email like this. So this email I got saying that this Adminer was successfully deployed, and in that there is a link to the URL. So Sanjeev, you want to explain some of the features about this URL and how it's generated?
That's correct. So if you look at the URL, and we will start from the right-hand side. So this URL is sitting on the lotus.cloud. The next set of numbers are the hex number, and that also will be the part of your dashboard URL. So this is the hex of the public IP on which the AppG platform is running. And if you go and request our AppG platform from AWS Marketplace, we have been live since April this year. You will get a similar type of the dashboard URL, the hex of the public IP .lotus.cloud. Lotus.cloud domain is something that we own, and we are running a public DNS service there. Now, the rest of the things, as you can see here, is the Git ID, the environment dev, and the pod that we have deployed, and the version of the pod. So all these things together, and we generate a Let's Encrypt certificate for that. This this whole construct, and giving you a public URL which you can access it. It's HTTPS protected. So HTTPS is one layer of security, and then you will see that once you hit the URL, there are other layers of MFA enabled for you to like browse the data which is sitting on the private network.
All right, so I'm going to click on that URL. So I'm going to open it in this window. So here is the login prompt. So Sanjeev, why don't you take us through what needs to be done here?
Yeah, if you're familiar with the admin or PgAdmin, it is the same interface that you are getting, web interface. So you will select the PostgreSQL driver here. The server would be and I'm sure I'm going to send it to you, but let me explain. The server, it is the service name for the pod which is running in your namespace. So if you look at again, we have followed a standard kind of the naming convention. So based on the repo, Postgres 13 master and the 13.x is the version that you selected in the app.yaml. So that's the server name. That's by which the service is running. Username that we created as per setup.yaml was the Springboot web. And the password is auto-generated. So Anusha is going to share with you the password for your Postgres deployment for with the Springboot user. And for OTP, Anusha will be sharing a QR code with you. You have to scan that, and that will be generating the unique numbers, 6-digit number, I believe. And that is what you will be entering here.
Okay, so let me generate. I'm going to open my Authenticator app. So please do use your favorite Authenticator app. The Anusha already shared with you privately the barcode. I'm setting that up now. Okay, so once you add the OTP barcode to your authenticator, I'm using Google Authenticator. It will show up as Unminer Workshop in your authenticator. So the OTP number code you want to add is the valid current code. So I'm going to add that now for me.
And they must be expiring every 30 seconds, I believe. Yeah. And the database is Springboot web that we set up.
All right. So I was able to log in.
The table that we have created in the public schema. So let's go there and see. Yep, I can see the table. So this is the preceding of the database and table that we did. And in fact, this URL, the PostgreSQL, if you look into the setup.yaml, that's also public URL we have. And you can look at the data like how what tables are getting created, what data is getting inside. It's a very simple database, but it could be as complex as your application, real applications would be.
That's right. So, just for those you are following, so I selected the public. So let me. I've then picked. So give me hit back. Okay. So I selected public. Then I selected the account table, and then I said select data to see the records. So these are the records that are currently in the database that we just created. So let's give it a few more minutes for everyone to catch up to this. So at this point, we have the Vault Secret Manager deployed, and it's functioning. And Postgres was deployed, and Adminer is ready to go. So next step would be the last one, which is the Springboot microservice.
And this whole process, as you can see, that as an end user, you are simply interacting with your Git repository. The rest, all complexity is handled by our platform and stacks. So that's the thing that, again, the certificate part, the security management, because we have seen our clients that they get stuck that they have built the applications, they know their business, they know that how to translate that business into software, but they are stuck, and the development team is not able to deploy that applications. That applications may have the database, that applications may have the different technology integration and all, the queuing, like so many things, and they are stuck because the applications runs on a desktop, but how to run in a resilient manner in a in any cloud or even the private data center, that is where our AppG platform and stacks come into the picture. So using your Git repository where your source code resides and using our templates and our platform, you can make the best use of our cloud, best use of the cloud.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to Springboot. So let me check with the team if they're ready.
One thing I want to give a heads up that if I say the Vault, Postgres, and Adminer, we follow the same flow in terms of like templating everything, like whether you are deploying in applications or whether you are configuring an infrastructure. You can call it, many people call the Postgres as part of the infrastructure, maybe managed by a separate team, or you are deploying a service, which is an Adminer service to like look into the database, or the Vault is the security will also be considered part of the security infrastructure. So however you want to slice and dice it, you are configuring, you are deploying certain policy against the cloud. Everything that we deploy is using a template. That way, template is kind of like a manifestation of the underlying technology, underlying configuration. And so far, you have seen mostly in terms of the infrastructure and the policy and the security. Now, here is the Springboot Web is the real application. If you are familiar with the Java, this will look this repo will look very familiar to you with the pom.xml and other source code. Rajit is forking now into his the personal Git repository, and here you will see that we are following the exact same process, which is to deploy a real application. In this case, it is a sample applications on, and this applications for all that you can say that I can run it on a VM, and it could be a live applications running in the VM, and today it could be a live applications running in a Kubernetes clusters tomorrow. And with the AppG platform, without the development team having any knowledge about Docker Kubernetes, and you could have selected any cloud to run the AppG platform, and it will give you the same look and feel.
All right. So I've already added the workbook. Going back to the AppG going to make the
go ahead, let's make the changes. Yeah, let's make those two changes. Only those two changes are required. Then I will explain, and let's run the deployment. Then I will explain about the repo.
Okay. Okay, while it's deploying, so we want to explain.
Yes. So like the top part is almost similar to other AppG that we have seen. The image template, you take a look, that's the Springboot v2. This is the image which will get pulled from our repository, our registry, and will be used. Now, this image along with our platform will help build the application. And you will see there's a pom.xml on the repo which will be used to build the application. And we have, if you have other window available for our list of the templates that we will also like to flash whenever you have time. But let me explain this. The properties section, here we have a title which you will see on top of the web interface that comes up. Now, this application is connecting to the Postgres 13 master 13x database. This is the same service name that we use to use, because this Springboot application will be also running under the same context. So at the Kubernetes layer, services can talk to each other. And within the same namespace, and that's what we are using. So that becomes your DB host. The DB name is the Springboot web, that database got created via the setup.yaml of the Postgres deployment, and the port is a standard port, and the DB username is the Springboot web. And the password is critical here. It is using the same password which got auto-generated while setting up the user within the Postgres database. So the same password is getting used by the applications, and this is the same password you use to log into the adminer. So that level of the security and the sophistication that we bring to make sure that your GitOps, your Git, or nowhere we are mentioning the password, and you are running a very secure deployment without worrying about that somebody will hack into if they get access to your GitHub repository.
All right. At this point, it looks like the deployment is done, and I got the email. So I'm going to use the URL from the email to reach the application that got deployed. So I'm going to use a new tab. So here is the application running. It's a simple application. Go ahead, Sanjeev, if you want to add anything here.
Yeah. So if you look at the PgAdmin, you will see that some title was used, and this is the same title which is appearing here, the client demo, and some of the versioning information that we are showing. It's a very simple, like the Java application, and the value of nano that we picked on the PgAdmin is also showing. And we check database record. Why did you click that? It is bringing the records, those 10 records from the Postgres database. So very simple applications, but it could be as complex as your real applications, but it will follow the exactly same process. And
okay.
I already explained the public URL. So if you look at the top, it has the same construct. So this is the HTTPS protected public URL that is available. And we are giving a Let's Encrypt certificate for that. This certificate will also getting auto renewed. So kind of like you don't have to worry about buying the certificate from the different providers and integrate it. That's a completely complex challenge. So we are giving you a Kubernetes cluster, and the AppG platform is enabling all the bells and whistles, and from the security point of view, from the resiliency point of view, from the GitOps and the CloudOps perspective, to take your applications directly live from your GitOps and in the fastest possible time without learning and buying any additional tool set.
All right. So want to add a record or edit a record and see what happens.
Yeah,
so
let's do that.
Let's edit. So I can see this. I'm going to change to A, David, and save it. And here you can see
the last one, Rajit, I believe. Like
yeah,
this.
So
this is the one. Yep, this is the one.
I'm going to reload it now.
Yep, let's do that.
Okay. And
the last one, I think, is changed to the last one. It goes to the bottom. Yeah, the way you press the data.
So at this point, I think we covered everything that we wanted to cover today. So we'll wait for some of the questions and others to catch up.
And I know some of our partners are also have joined today. And in case they're listening, if they want to have the similar kind of the workshop, or if you're listening on behalf of your company, if you want to have a similar kind of workshop exclusively done for your team, let us know. And either we can do this on our lab infrastructure, or if you want, we can do this on your infrastructure also. It will take a couple of hours for us to build a complete infrastructure on your on your complete AppG platform on your infrastructure and run a demo. It's up to you. We have a couple of lab infrastructure already running, and if you just want to participate in that exclusively for your team, let us know. Rajit, I want to flash, while things are doing, I want to flash the AppG in the marketplace and also the list of templates if you can bring up.
Okay, let me find the link. Why don't you talk about the marketplace, and I'll find the link.
Yes. So the AppG platform that you saw, the applications, your applications, those 4 deployments happening, we are available in the AWS marketplace. Just go to the AWS marketplace and search for low-touch cloud platform, and it is the same platform which you see you saw today, and you can subscribe to it, and we use CloudFormation to build the whole platform, and you will get a similar kind of URL in case you participate in the workshop, and that URL will be against your the EC2 instances that gets created on your in your AWS account, and you will be able to deploy the Springboot, Java, Vault application from the public repository right away. Again, if you have your real application to be deployed, you can do that as well. Definitely, I would like you to contact us so that we help you with this process. And if any type of customization is needed on the AppG template, or rather, we can also train you how to build your own template. So again, there's a lot to learn here. The whole idea is that you focus on your the core competency, which is the application development for the business domain, in the business domain that you're operating. And we bring the Docker, Cloud, Kubernetes, open source to you as a consumable commodity, and not a thing which you have to learn, spend a lot of time to learn, and then only you can use it.
All right. So back to the dashboard, the cluster is still, this is the same cluster that we're using. So, as you can see, the consumption numbers and things like that. And so we do have alerts automatically generated out of the dashboard. So when things go wrong, or things it's about to go wrong, we automatically process the alerts, and we can enable tickets or create tickets, and even close them when the problem goes away. All right. So anything else you want to cover, Sanjeev?
So I think pretty much we have covered everything. And like in the today's demo, we covered 4 templates. We have hundreds of like similar templates, and and we covered the Postgres and Springboot primarily. If you want a demo for your favorite language, reach out to us. In fact, we have been conducting this webinar for past several months. As I mentioned earlier, that last week it was running the PostgresMaster and slave, and show that how we can do run a fully resilient Postgres kind of like the production ready. We are also planning that next week the demo would be a .NET application, and with the Postgres and similar workflow you will see. So again, give us the feedback, and anything else that you want to see in future, any technology that you want to see, and we would be happy to entertain that in the future webinar, and also host a private webinar for your team so that your team can participate and learn from it.
All right, and we're going to end the live session now, but please do continue in our Slack channel. So the team will be helping you the rest of the day. So any questions, you please ping us. And also, if you're, the workshop actions, if you have to still continue to catch up, please use the channel. We'll help you there. All right. Thanks, Sanjeev. Thanks for everyone for joining, and thanks for participating. See you next week. Thank you.